Okay, welcome back to the show, and I have a very, very special guest on the show today, Mr. Dangerous Danny Davis. All thanks to Mario Mancini. I know you want to start the show off by saying a few words about Mario.
Oh, one of the best, man. He was the best jobber in WWF history, in my opinion. I worked with him, I worked against him, and now he's teaching wrestling.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Did you see
and
him
and it,
recently? He had a little cameo on Vice TV recently. Did you see him?
yes, isn't that something? He lives in his mother's basement. uh, oh, wait till I see
Oh,
this guy.
yeah. He's gonna love that one. You know he's gonna laugh at that anyway.
Yeah, he'll be falling out of his chair. Now, a
Look,
character
Danny,
like him, he has some stories, boy.
he is a great storyteller, and he's the most viewed podcast on this channel because of his stories.
Really?
Hmm
Do they know half of it is bullshit? No, no, I'm just kidding. I'm having fun.
Oh, that was the roast of Mario Mancini there.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So, what do we have tonight, my
So
friend?
what do we have? Well, I tell you why we're going to start, because we are going to start on this on your website, which we talked about um over the phone last night, and just obviously your book is on there, and you've got various different other things. I can just scroll through it here. This one, and you've
Yes,
got
I
so
have
obviously your book there.
the book. I have the mask from Mr. X. It's not the
Hmm
original mask. We had some made up, and that's on dangerousdannydavis.com. And you'll go to that website, and you can look through the items there, and I will send you an autographed book or picture or whatever you want. Of course, there's the prices are on there.
Yeah. And of course, the book's been out for a few years now. And what's the
Okay.
reception been like
No,
for the book?
very good, very good. We're thinking about we may even do a different cover and add a little more to the next book, and because it's such a hit. The book itself is not a book per se about wrestling as much as it is about an inspiration for others to live their dreams. And when you read this book, you'll find that I had a pretty rough upbringing. I was a street kid, and I had a dream. And that dream was to one day be in the wrestling ring. Back then, it was WWF with Vince's father. But I knew in my heart, I was just a little 135-pound guy, and I was 15 years old when I first saw it. But I knew in my heart that one day that it would take place, it would happen. And I paid dues, and I worked hard. And this book was designed to inspire young and old to live their dreams, because you only get one time at the plate, as it were. And a lot of people live their whole life with dreams and never fulfill them. And it comes at a cost, and it always does. But brother, they always ask me, "What's it like?" And unless you've done it, I can't explain it.
Yeah. And of course, you had to pay a lot of dues to get to where you were in the WWF as well. Like, and how did you end up working, I suppose, for the biggest company in the world?
I started out with Vince's father,
Okay.
uh, and I would put up. Uh, I would go into an arena early. I would put up the ring. I would set up chairs. I would do concessions, and at the end of I would referee. And at the end of the night, I would take it all down, pack it in a truck, and drive 200 or 300 miles. Be there for the next day, and do it all over again. This was on a daily basis, weeks at a time, uh, and it was a lot of work, and that's what it takes: dedication, a lot of work, a lot of hard work, and but that dream is there. It's at the end. You know it's there, and you're working for it. And again, like you just said, it takes a lot. It's a lot of sacrifices. You miss so much around your people, your family, You're out on Christmas, you're out on Thanksgiving, you miss birthdays, you miss your baby's first step, troubles, sickness, deaths, and it's uh, a hard road. But if you want that, it's your dream. It's yours. It's nobody else's. You can achieve it, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of sacrifices, as we both pointed out. And I hate to keep saying that, but that's what it's all about. And people have achieved their dreams, and they should take pride in that because it's an awful thing to, again, live a whole life with a dream and never achieve it. And sometimes it's too late, whether it's an accidental death or an injury or whatever it is. And you say, shit, I should have done this. I should have done it. And if you find a partner that will support you, it makes it even sweeter. And me coming from a poor background,
Was
and I
that?
mean poor,
Yeah.
it's even greater. Your family sees it, and they know what you went through. And in your heart, you know what you went through, and you take advantage of it, and you enjoy it.
Was that the worst thing about being on the road, just being away from family and friends?
Well, I think if you talk to anyone that's in the wrestling business, even today, I think you'll find that that's the worst thing. Uh, you know,
Mhm.
life deals you hands. If you have children, they get sick, and God forbid something worse happens. Car crashes. Your mother, your father, your sisters, your brothers. Something happens to them. You've got to be here at this arena. A wise man told me, who trained me, the man who trained me, Chief J. Strongbow, said, listen, kid, one thing you have to remember. These people are poor people who come to see you, or they've given their last dime or last dollar to come and see you wrestle. You have to be there. Every night you have to be there. So if you're not willing to do that, pack your bag and go home. And when you're out there, you
Yeah,
give
yeah,
100%. Every night you got to give 100%, whether there's 10 people there or 10,000 people there. And I live by that. And I took advantage of that knowledge, and I was there every night. And yes, the sacrifices were great, but the end result was I can look you in the eye, and the world knows. I mean, the whole world knows that Dangerous Dandy Davis. They know who I am. They know what we've done, what we did, and they know that I was there every night and giving them their 100%. And that makes me feel pride. And everybody on that
yeah,
card did the same thing. So to answer to
yeah,
your question, yes, that was the hardest part, but we did it. And it was for the fans,
yeah.
and the fans
Who's
deserve it. And without the fans, there is no wrestling.
Yeah, 100%. Whose idea was the Mr. X persona, and how did that come about?
That was my own
Obviously, I
thing.
know you had to be with the referee.
Well, that was my
Okay.
own thing. There was a wrestler named Rick McGraw, and I'm sure a wrestling buff would know who he was. He was a jobber, but he was in small in stature, and him and I became really close friends. Took me to the gym. We would do independent shows when we had a chance, and we would work with each other as with that, and he would help me along. And of course, Jay Strongbow knew who I was. I was doing that, and he took me under his wing and showed me some stuff too. And he was my mentor. So between the two of them, Vince McMahon didn't even know who I was when we did TV. He just thought I was another kid off the. He didn't know. Really, that's the truth.
Okay.
And then when he found out, I thought that he would, because his father was always, if you were in the office or worked for the office, dead set against anybody being in the ring at the same time. Why, I don't know. But today, he would be rolling over in his grave if he saw what was happening today with Vince and the kids and everything else. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was the Mr. X thing helped me develop a wrestling knowledge. And these guys worked with me. All these guys uh, back then, uh, they were fantastic in helping me. And they would help me at shows. I would, be Mr. X. I would be doing jobs and stuff like that. And they would help me. And it was great. Everybody was part of it, part of the family, as it were.
Yeah. what was which did you prefer doing, wrestling or refereeing, or does it even come close in your opinion?
Well, refereeing, I have to say, was important to me in that it was the catalyst for me to become a wrestler. Without that, I wouldn't the other wouldn't have happened. So it would be a toss up. And then of course everything's history from there, you know. But I think it's a toss up because again, like I say, and I hate to be repetitive, but without one, there's not the other. And from my point of view, for me.
Mm-hmm. You touched on Vince and all the stuff that's going on now. What was your impressions of working with Vince Jr. at the time? And was he always a bit kind of? I know he was always there, but was he always a bit kind of odd, maybe, or on the go all the time, or what?
Yes, that guy. If he got 3 hours sleep a night, it would be a lot of sleep. When he owned that building down in Stamford, Connecticut, where he had a studio and stuff like that, do interviews and stuff like that, he was merciless. He would have guys come in, fly them in, get them up at 3 in the morning, have them over there and work them all day and do interviews and stuff like that. And he was always up all night. He would be thinking about things and stop and get it done. Yeah, he was. It was. I don't know how he did it. I mean, no one could keep up with him. Yeah, and he was, you know, and he had an ego, you know, as big as he was, you know, but he did, you know, for wrestling. Some say he did the wrong thing. Some still hate him for it, but the result is what it is today, and you can take that any way you want to. A lot of people that I talk to feel that, you know, he kind of ruined the business for everybody. But and other people say, well, he had to bring it into the 21st century. He's the one who brought it along, and you know, everybody was making money, top money, big money. So who knows?
Yeah. Are you talking about it kind of going more into the entertainment side of things rather than focusing on the wrestling?
Well, it had to evolve some way, and
yeah.
I don't know, and we'll never know if it would have worked without bringing it into the entertainment end of it. I think we could have combined it. You know, in my day, it wasn't like it is today, where it's all choreographed and you can only say this or that. All our interviews were off the cuff. We worked with each other. We wrestled each other. I mean, and when you come out of that ring at the end of a wrestling match, in my day, you were bruised and battered, and we did things that aren't done today and not allowed to be done today. So the evolution, I can see, but now as you can also see that the ratings are going down, people are getting tired of it, and another idea, another direction. I don't know if there is
one. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting maybe year ahead to see where it all kind of ends up. But when we touched on the entertainment industry, I suppose like that nearly started like back in your time as well with guys like Mr. T coming in that I know you kind of worked with as well. What was he like around the dressing room?
He was all right. He was a good guy. I mean, there was nothing special about him to us. We were all bigger than he was. I was about the same size as he was, but he was to make the transition from acting, where you get a limousine, you get fed, you know, great meals, you're in 5-star hotels, you know, you come and go as you please. If you don't feel like doing it, you know, babysat for and all that. When he walked into our world, it wasn't like that. You got your ass on a plane early morning, you went to a gym, you went and got something to eat, you got to the arena, and you did your job, and then the next day you were he couldn't, in my opinion, he couldn't. That wasn't for him. It wasn't for him. And we had a little thing that was supposed to happen between him and I, but that never came to fruition because of he just didn't like the idea of all that. uh, how can I say it? He wasn't being pampered like he would be on a set, a television, you know. So that's
Okay.
a
What were you
hard
guys supposed
transition.
to do?
I don't know, but I think I was supposed to maybe a blow off or something. Or he would make a call. I would, uh, disagree with it or
And
whatever.
did
I don't
he?
know
Yeah.
what the exact plan was.
Yeah. Were the guys a bit kind of standoffish backstage about a kind of a Hollywood guy coming in to your world?
Yeah, only in that he didn't know how to work. Number one, and as I say, we were my day. We were snug. We kept it snug. I mean, and by that, the effort. What that means is we didn't uh, pull a lot of punches. We threw you. We pick you up and slam you.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And that it was pretty rough. Uh, for him to do that. Again, it wasn't Hollywood. And these guys,
Hmm.
and he didn't know how to work. So they came up with a thing with Bob to box. You'd have a boxing match. Bob Orton
Yeah.
with Bob
Yeah.
Orton. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
how that ended, because that's all he knew. But again, that was if you watched it, it was kind of a mess. At a WrestleMania, it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was scared shit. And it wasn't. And it wasn't, yeah, because it wasn't choreographed. He had to do it. There was no stunt man or anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that was
Yeah.
the direction they went, only to get what they needed to get out of it.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
And
That's my opinion.
yeah. Yeah. Mario
Anybody who
Mancini, when you
steps
talk about
anybody who steps into a
Mario,
ring, and thinks they know, they learn very quickly that you don't know shit, and that includes me. I mean,
yeah.
I was shown what receipts were. I was shown, you mess up, this is what's going to happen, and don't bitch, don't complain. If you don't know what you're doing, stay the hell out of there. So that's how we learn, old school.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Mario was saying that Bret Hart was the most snug person that he wrestled.
Yeah, Bret was snug. Again, old school. When I worked with Bret as Mr. X, I worked with his brother, the when he was a Blue Blazer, Owen, and they were
Oh
snug,
yeah.
and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I liked it snug. I worked with George Steele so many times. He liked this. He was rough, and I liked it, and I gave it back. But some guys, don't touch my hair and don't do this. But George and I, we weren't at it, and Bret the same, and a lot of guys that you wouldn't suspect uh, not to like being snug, let's use that word. You would think, oh, he wouldn't care. He's a tough guy, but not really. They would complain and say, whatever. And so when you complain, all right, sorry, yep, you get it worse next time. So guys soon learn, just keep your mouth shut, take your lumps, and move on, and you get along better. Believe me.
Yeah, I heard Hulk Hogan was kind of like that. Was he kind of?
Well, you got to understand, and I often thought that same thing, but he was driving. He was on top. He was the guy selling out the houses.
Yep.
Selling out the place. If he gets hurt, what happens? The whole thing comes apart. So yes, you protected. If you were smart, you protected Hogan with everything you had, because he's the guy that's making the money. He's the guy selling out these big buildings. He's the guy that's making, putting bread and butter on your table, feeding your kids, paying your mortgage. You want to end that? No, you don't want to do that. And so he protected himself. And I agreed with that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like being in the company around the time with the the steroid trial. Mario's told me a few stories about Vince going crazy and stuff like that. Was that a worrying time for the business?
Well, when it first started, steroids weren't illegal. There was no laws
Mm.
prohibiting the use of them. Uh, but when the laws were enacted, and most athletes in most sporting events were using them for enhancement of it, and it was encouraged to use them. Uh, Football, all of them, baseball, of course, all the stories. We weren't the only
Yeah.
ones, but we was kind of used as a catalyst, I guess, to bring that stuff under control in the sports world. I
Mm.
mean, all of us, but all of us didn't do that. Take the steroids. There are other ways of building your muscles. It took longer. It took a lot of work, etc., to do it. You'd have to be in the gym twice a day as opposed to one, and you have to, take other things, vitamins, nutrition. Nutrition was a big thing, and you have to study it. But again, the ones that will one day uh, completely transformed, within a couple, a year or so, you could tell that who was doing it, who was, but there's a side effects to that, the irritability, the blowups, you're not in your, and I've seen that too. Guys that were so nice when they came in, get on, did that shit, and then they mean, nasty, just fly off the handle and stuff like that. I don't know. And you knew right away to stay away from them. But it was a trying time in that, as I say, being put in the spotlight for the use when everybody else was using them as well. In other sports, and
Mm.
Vince would go, Vince would go crazy and give everybody tests and stuff like that, and a lot of guys got suspended, and a lot of guys never stopped. They would keep getting suspended, and that's why. But there were so many of them that anybody could take, and that was another thing about in that time. There were 100 guys waiting to take your place. If you weren't doing your job and you weren't there every night, and you could miss one night, and they'd say, they'd replace you with somebody else, and you'd be a jobber again. That's how vicious it was. So,
Mm.
you can only do that and test positive so many times, and then you're fired. So what was the
Yeah.
sense? Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, sure, you look great and all that stuff, but if you're going to be suspended eventually, what sense does it make?
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure, I think, and a lot of jealousy, I think, from outside the wrestling world, particularly in America, in the 80s and 90s. If you think back to the highlighting of the steroids, as you say, they were in other sports as well, and then you look at what happened with David Schultz and the journalist as well. Trying to do this
Yes, yes,
undercover wrestling isn't real kind of stuff. You know.
yes. Well, they don't see. People didn't understand. You could years ago, and I only know this because I've talked to people like Lou Albano and those guys, Arnold Skolins, way back in the '50s when it first started. I mean, you got to give these guys credit. But when you went to Madison Square Garden and two guys were in the ring, and one guy would grab a headlock on the other guy for an hour, 45 minutes, and just sit there holding the headlock, or another hold or something like that. So someone came up with the idea to enhance it by uh, letting the headlock go. You put the headlock on me, and it developed back in the time. Uh, and the jealousy was that we were making millions of dollars, and some
Yeah.
of them in the other sporting. A lot of people came from other sports to get into that business. There were football players that tried to get in. There were bodybuilders that wanted to be part of it. There were baseball players that wanted to be part, and they couldn't cut it. They wouldn't make it. So yeah, there was a lot of. But if you ran into them, everybody was friends. We were all friends. You know, uh,
Yeah.
I mean, there would be no fighting. A couple of times, maybe someone would mouth off in a bar or something like that. But another athlete I'm talking about. But we all have
Yeah,
respect as athletes for each other. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah. One of the fan questions that I got was like, what was Andre the Giant like as a person backstage to be around?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I carried him around for about 5 or 6 years. We traveled together, Andre and I. I was responsible to see that he got to the buildings, he got to the hotel, he got on his plane, he got up in the morning, etc. And he ate and he took care of himself. I went to Japan with him. I mean, I traveled with him quite a bit. And he was the most humble, uh, big hearted human being I ever met. He was docile. He was very patient with people unless he was eating and you come up and asked him and how, and he didn't like the questions like, well, how does it feel to be that big and this and that, you know. And he had his irritability times, and that's what I would do. I would screen people and I would go and say, leave him alone. You know, he's busy. Wait till after, and I'll see what I can do about him getting to talk to you. I can't promise you. But in the dressing room, that was Andre's home away from home. That's the only place he felt comfortable. He was one of the boys. He fit in. No one looked at him as anything different, you know. Of course, we all knew he was huge, you know, but that we didn't.
Yeah,
We treated him like anybody else, and that's where he was most comfortable in the dressing room. And he would go right
yeah,
from the airplane to the building and sit in the dressing room. We'd play cards until the guys started coming in, and his home in North Carolina, he had built for him. He had 18-foot ceilings. He had a swimming pool as a bathtub and all that stuff. Everything huge, built
wow,
for him. Yeah, and in the dressing room, one of the best people you'd ever want to meet. He was kind to everybody. Well, he had his ways. Uh, and if he didn't like you, you couldn't get him to like you if you gave him $1 million. If he liked you, that was it. You were in, you know. And he happened to like me. We got along. We understood each other, and I took care of him, and he would take care of me in his own way, you know. And like he wouldn't ever let me buy a meal or anything to drink. Or if I needed something, he would take care of it. And he would get insulted if you went out and ate by yourself. You know, what do you do that for, boss? And he'd get mad. He wouldn't talk to you and he would calm down. But your answer to your question, out of everybody I've met in my wrestling career, is he was the one of the best people I ever met. That's the truth.
yeah. I heard obviously as an Irish man as well, he's well able to put away pints of beer. He's in the Guinness Book of Records for it.
Yes, but a lot of that is embellished. A lot of that is embellished too. But that's the truth.
Yeah,
I mean, he can do it. But people say, "Oh, what?" He would eat a regular meal. He would sit down and have a meal and a beer or a couple of beers or whatever, and he wouldn't overdo it all the time. But he could. I mean, he wouldn't be overdoing it. To you and I, would be overdoing it. But
yeah,
his body his tank was so big that he could hold a lot. But but he would eat a normal meal, a normal portion. He might have seconds or something like that, but this exaggeration, and he did it to see if he could do it a lot of times. And he's a kind of a show off too. And there was nothing wrong with that. Just a good natured guy.
yeah.
Yeah, but
What's the best piece of it?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's the best piece of advice you've got ever in the wrestling business?
I told you that at the outset about giving 100%. Respect. When you walked in the dressing room, you shook everybody's hand. I don't give a shit if you saw him 4 hours ago. You walked in, you started with the oldest. Hello, just a nice handshake, and they shake your hand. If they came in, they do the same thing. You'd stand up and shake their hand. Respect, and that was the main thing when you ran into someone who had set the bar for you. People who came before you, utmost respect, and that's the main. Today, I walked into dressing rooms, people don't even say hi to each other. I walked into dress rooms where I've said hello and they've said hi. They don't even know who you are. They don't care. But even if you don't know who the person is, you shake their hand. Today it's gone. I heard they had their own little handshake now and their own little thing, and that's all right. It's their world now. But I always, if I have a talk or a speech or I talk in front of a group of wrestlers, sometimes I go to independent shows and they invite me just to talk to the kids, and I say that I give them that speech. Respect everyone. When someone walks in the dress room, I don't care if you know them or not. You get up, yes sir, no sir, thank you sir, pleasure to meet you sir. I'm so and so, and that goes a long way.
What would it mean to you, and would you like to go into the WWE Hall of Fame at some point?
Well, I've always wondered about that, and I've talked to people about it. There is no Hall of Fame. Where is it? There's no, but I have a close personal friend of mine, and everybody knows who I'm going to talk about, Howard Finkel, the announcer, the world famous announcer. Him and I were best of friends. We started out in the same arena, New Haven Coliseum. He started out as an announcer, and I started out as a referee the same night. But that's another story. And he used to talk to me about the Hall of Fame, and when it was in its infancy. And he said, eventually everybody will be in the Hall of Fame. But now what's happened is they won't or don't want to spend a lot of money to bring like myself in, a couple of my family members, put me up and all that stuff. They'll wait till you pass on across, and then they'll put you in posthumously, and it won't cost them as much. Now that's a harsh thing to say. That's a harsh thing to say, but you look at who's being inducted, and you see that there are a lot of people who aren't with us no more that are being inducted, and they're using the term, they're trying to make it seem like, wow, we missed them, we should have done it before. But I know the truth, and you know the truth. It's cost effectiveness, and that's all this business is about now, is money. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Wow, I never heard someone with that opinion before, but yeah, that's crazy. You think even I suppose how do rich people get rich? They make tough decisions and they just try to save at every inch they can. But so that's a no then, basically. Anyway, it doesn't interest you, or
well, one way or the other. They can put me in as a referee. They can put me in with the Hart Foundation. They can put me in as Dangerous Danny Davis. So there are options. Look at Earl Hebner. Look at Dave Hebner, who just crossed over. Who left us last year. I don't get it. And that is it. So that's my answer. And I could be wrong, but that's the way I feel. And I've been in this business, around that business for a long time, my friend. And I can see a lot of things that people don't, And a lot of people don't want to believe that, but I think that's true.
Yeah. Do you watch it at all these days, or how do you consume wrestling? What way is it in your life?
Well, I watch. The thing about it with me is I watch very little, if any. But what I did a couple of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I watched it, and I, said, well, it's, the kids, but they're pushing the same people, and 3 years later, I turned the TV on. It's the same people with a different image. I said, they're the same guys, and they keep rehashing them. And the other day, I turned it on, and they're still there. The same guys being put over and everything else. John Cena. I mean, I love everybody. Don't get me wrong, but John Cena. And they're still putting him over. I mean, what the? So, is it business? Is he drawing? Is he still making money for him? I don't know. But nothing's changed. The names have changed, but everything's the same, And that's what hurt me because, but where else can they go, really? And
yeah.
and you know what we talked about at the beginning, the sacrifices and stuff. Go home, live your life with your family. You know, you've earned. You know, the money's 100 times what we were making, maybe 1,000 times what we were making back when. And you've made your money. You're rich. You're doing well. Go home and enjoy the rest of your life. Find something else to do. You know, and that's what I tell kids today. Always find an out. Have an out. Have something else to do. And I did. You know, I got my when I was wrestling, I got my CDL license, Class A. I got my hazmat. I got my license to operate machinery, you know, heavy equipment, and all that stuff when on my days off. And when I quit, I had somewhere to go, you know.
Hmm.
And that's the problems. And Vince, and I use a quote from Vince McMahon: "When they fall from grace, they're lost." And that's why they turn into alcohol, you know, to alcohol and drugs and stuff like that because they have nothing else. So I always tell a younger person who wants to be a wrestler, fine. If you want to be a wrestler and you make it, that's good. But always have something else to do when you leave. That's
Yeah.
lucrative.
In yeah. In 1989, we'll say when you left the Hart Foundation, then transitioned back into a regular kind of referee. Did you have any kind of worries at that time that you could be let go because they changed you from, say, a character just into a regular referee? Was that ever in your mind? Is that why you were doing those training
No,
courses and stuff?
I left. I left. And if you read my book, the reason is in that book. And I don't want to give it away because it's a good part of the book. But I left.
Okay.
I knew, see, I was in the business long enough to know that, as I'm saying to you, there's going to be a beginning, and everybody can't wait to get that break. But when as soon as you get that break, back in them days, you peaked and then you went out, and that was the end of it.
Hmm.
And everybody understood that because there were so many angles and so many things. People waited in line. So I knew that there was going to be a beginning. And it goes back to my what we talked about earlier. I had a dream. I lived that dream. Now I have other dreams that I want to do in my life. And them dreams are still mine and I still want to achieve them. So when I left, I knew what I was going to do. And the first thing I did is I went to a farm and I was cleaning up behind cattle, milking cows for $8 an hour. And I was cleaning manure and I was spreading manure. And it got me back into the reality of life for me. And then I got a job, you know, with sewer and water department, and I drove a truck, and I built myself up, and I had all these dreams, and I, so far, I've written a book when I was home, and I've achieved a lot of things in my life, which will be in the next chapter of my book. But yeah, I've done what I wanted to do, and people are amazed that I still keep doing things that uh, other people just dream about, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
So I had
What's
no hesitation about leaving wrestling.
yeah? What's next on your to-do list then?
Well, that's going to be a surprise. No,
Okay.
in reality, and I never told anybody this. In reality, I have a Native American background, and I have gone to and I'm part of two nations, Native American nations. I'm a sub chief in one, and I am a part of another. And so I've gone back kind of my Native American roots, and I am going to achieve good things there too. So that's what I'm working on now. And there'll be more about that
Excellent. Excellent.
later on. Yeah, well, I lived, you know, I did what I had to do, and I'm going to do more before I, you know, cross over. And hopefully I can leave a legacy that everybody and people would just be amazed at what you can do when you have a dream and you want to achieve it.
Mm.
So we're going right
Before
around the circle here.
Yeah, it is, and we're right at the end now, so we're just gonna flash up the book again here.
All right, that book, don't forget, order on dangerousdannydavis.com. And I'd like to have everybody like me on Facebook at Danny Davis. And that'd be a great thing. I love to talk to people about old time wrestling and just meet new people.
Yeah, and of course, people can get the masks there as well and autograph copies
Masks,
by yourself.
pictures.
So,
Yes.
Danny, it was a pleasure to have you on the show today, man, and thank you
My
so
friend,
much.
Mario Mancini was right. You're the shits. No.
Yes.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much. Keep in touch, please.
Cheers, man. Yeah, thanks.